The Wood estate sat at the end of Magnolia Ridge Road in Cedar Hollow, Texas, like a promise that old money makes to itself. Sprawling limestone columns, a wraparound porch dressed in white Christmas lights, and inside, the kind of carefully arranged warmth that looked like joy from a distance but smelled, up close, of tension and Chanel No. 5. Rosa Lane Wood had spent 3 days preparing for this dinner. She had ironed the Belgian linen tablecloth herself, polished every piece of Waterford crystal by hand, and arranged the poinsettias along the sideboard until the dining room looked like a magazine spread for a family that did not yet know it was coming apart at the seams. At 8 months pregnant, her white lace maternity dress pressed tight across her belly, she moved between the kitchen and the dining room with the practiced precision of a woman who had learned, over 6 years of marriage to Henry Wood, to make her own silence useful. The guests began arriving at 6. Her sister Grace came in a forest green wrap dress, her husband Tom steady and quiet at her side. Mama Elaine Wood, Henry's mother, swept through the front door in her wool coat and silver brooch, and immediately began offering unsolicited opinions about the centerpiece. Henry himself had not yet come down from his upstairs office when Dr. James Ellison arrived. The family physician, a soft-spoken man of 55 in a charcoal sport coat, with the kind of settled eyes that had witnessed too many difficult rooms to be easily disturbed. He had managed Rose's prenatal care for 7 months. He arrived 40 minutes early, and when Rose moved to take his coat at the front door, he pressed her hand in both of his and held it 1 second longer than courtesy required. "Rose," he said, his voice low and deliberate, close enough that only she could hear it. "I need you to read something before Henry comes downstairs. Don't react. Don't look up. Just read it." He pressed a folded note into her palm, the way a man delivers a final confession, with the resigned calm of someone who has already counted the cost of telling the truth. She held the note in her closed fist through the coat closet, through the offer of sweet tea, through the walk back toward the kitchen. She did not open it until she reached the downstairs bathroom and turned the lock behind her. The note was handwritten on a prescription notepad, and it read, in James's careful, unhurried script, "Henry has been in contact with Hargrove Mergers since October. He intends to transfer the 40% equity stake your father left to you into Candace Marlowe's name. Before the baby is born, he needs your signature on a document he will call a hospital authorization form. Do not sign anything tonight. The woman he is bringing to dinner is not a colleague. Burn this." She read it twice. Her hand found the edge of the vanity basin. She stood very still in the pale bathroom light while the baby moved inside her, slow and certain. And through the door came the sound of Nat King Cole drifting from the sitting room, chestnuts roasting, an open fire, and directly above her, the heavy footsteps of her husband crossed the ceiling and began moving toward the stairs. She walked back into the dining room and she smiled, because a woman who had survived 6 years of Henry Wood's silences knew exactly when to wear a face like armor. Henry descended the staircase in his navy pinstripe suit, with the unhurried ease of a man who believed every room belonged to him the moment he entered it. Jaw sharp, silver at the temples, gold cufflinks catching the chandelier light as he adjusted them at the wrist. He was not alone. 3 steps behind him came Candace Marlowe, 29 years old, with cheekbones cut like imported marble and a crimson halter dress that announced itself as a deliberate act the moment she crossed the dining room threshold. Rose had never seen her inside this house before, though she had seen her photographed twice. Once on a company gala receipt found in Henry's blazer pocket, and once through a restaurant window on 5th Street in Austin, watching her laugh at something Henry said while Rose sat in a parked car with her groceries going warm. "Everyone," Henry said with the expansive warmth of a man performing his own best self. "This is Candace, our new VP of Strategic Partnerships at Woodcrest. She's new to Cedar Hollow and doesn't have family nearby, so I thought it'd be nice to include her." A beat of silence moved across the table like a cold current. Grace's fork stopped mid-air. Tom's jaw set. Mama Elaine produced a thin smile that had been protecting her son since before he could walk. And Rose looked at Candace Marlowe and said, in a voice so smooth and even it was almost kind, "Welcome to our home." The meal proceeded. Henry held court. Q4 projections, pipeline contracts in West Texas, the company's move toward renewable leasing, filling the room with the particular loudness of confident men who have mistaken volume for authority. Candace laughed at his asides. Mama Elaine nodded along. Grace watched Rose the entire time with the careful, frightened attention of a person watching someone stand close to the edge of something high. It was during dessert. Rose's grandmother's bourbon pecan pie, which she had baked the day before while Henry was in Dallas, that Henry reached into his inside jacket pocket and produced a folded document. He uncapped his pen with a practiced motion and held it out across the table toward his wife. "Rose, sweetheart, I meant to have you sign this before dinner. It's a hospital pre-authorization form in case you go into early labor while I'm traveling over the holidays. Standard procedure. The hospital's legal team requested it. Easier to do it now while everyone's here as witnesses." The chandelier hummed. Candace Marlowe's fingers went very still around her wineglass. Dr. James sat without moving, and Rose looked at her husband, at the rehearsed calm behind his eyes, at the way the room had gone quiet, at the particular way rooms go quiet when everyone present understands that a trap has been set. And she understood, with the cold, clarifying certainty of a woman who had been paying very quiet attention for a very long time, that this moment was the one the entire evening had been built around. "Of course," she said. "I'd love to read it first." Henry's smile thinned by 1 degree. "It's just 6 pages of standard language, Rose." She reached for the document. "Then it won't take me long," she said. What everyone in that dining room had always overlooked, what Henry himself had overlooked, because he had spent 6 years looking at Rose and seeing only his own reflection of what a quiet wife should be, was the framed document hanging on the wall of the downstairs study, across from the leather armchair where Henry took his phone calls every morning. It had been there for 4 years. Rose had framed it herself, chosen the dark walnut frame herself, hung it herself on a Tuesday afternoon while Henry was in Midland closing a deal. It was her father's original deed of business trust, the legal instrument through which he had structured the 40% equity stake in Woodcrest Energy as irrevocably vested in Rose, subject to a clause that rendered any transfer void without independent legal counsel review and a 30-day written notification period to the named beneficiary. Henry had looked at that frame every single day for 4 years. He had never read past the first paragraph, Rose had read every line the morning after her father's funeral, alone in the study while Henry took condolence calls in the kitchen. She had read it the way a person reads a lifeboat manual, carefully, thoroughly, without hurrying, because she had understood even then, even in grief, that calm seas are not a permanent condition. She turned to page 4 of Henry's document, where the equity transfer language lived. She had known which page before she touched it. And she set the uncapped pen on top of the paper and slid both back across the linen tablecloth toward her husband. "I won't be signing this tonight, Henry," she said, in the same quiet voice she used for everything, the voice he had always mistaken for submission. "The equity transfer clause on page 4 conflicts with my father's trust instrument, the one in the study frame. I'd suggest you have Marcus at Hargrove Mergers review the deed language again. He missed the 30-day notification requirement." The silence that followed was the specific kind that only falls when everyone in a room understands simultaneously that something irreversible has just occurred. Candace Marlowe set down her wine glass. Mama Elaine's breath caught audibly. Henry's face moved through several private calculations before settling into something rigid and unrecognizable. The expression of a man meeting for the very first time a version of his wife he had never thought to look for. "Rose," he said quietly, with the dangerous stillness of a man recalibrating everything. "This isn't the place." She held his gaze. "You made it the place, Henry. You brought her here." Then she stood, smoothed her white lace dress over her stomach with both hands, looked across the table at her sister and said, "Grace, would you help me with the coffee?" And she walked out of the dining room without a backward glance. Not at her husband, not at Candace Marlowe, not at Mama Elaine's silver brooch catching the chandelier light one final time. Henry Wood did not sleep beside his wife that night. He sat in the study until 2 in the morning with a glass of bourbon and his phone, and whatever Marcus at Hargrove Mergers said back to him settled on his face when he finally